Hey guys, how are we doing? Thanks for joining me once again for another set of videos. If you haven't been here before, my name's Peter, this is Thailand Bound, and I talk about all things Thailand. Today, I'm going to be reading out 5 viewer stories. These are 5 stories that have been sent in to me to read out to you, and they haven't been read out on this channel before. They're all brand new stories. Right, just before I get into the stories today, the first of 5, I just want to remind you, if you're contemplating sending in a story to me of an experience somewhere in Southeast Asia or elsewhere, it's always nice to get news stories, but do bear in mind that YouTube's compliance, their rules are very, very strict. Any reference to, I can't even say it here because it's YouTube. You know what I'm trying to say? I replace certain words, like, if you're a regular viewer here, I use the word aerobics to replace something else. So I'm sure you know what I mean, right? One of the stories today, I got excited when I first got it. It said it was called My Nightmare in Bangkok, and I thought this is going to be good. But when I read through it, there was just too much graphic detail in it that I had to really heavily chop it to bits, censor it, and I then put it through ChatGPT at the beginning and said, take out anything that's not compliant with YouTube, and it basically lost half the story, which is a shame because it was a good story. So I am going to read that story out today, and it would have been nice to have the details, but the problem is with YouTube, they'll just simply remove the video, then all my hard work is for nothing, and you don't get to see the stories on Saturday. So just keep that in mind. You can still describe your experiences in Pattaya or Bangkok, wherever you are, but just bear in mind the compliance rules. You don't necessarily have to take out of the story, just try and find words to replace where we get the same kind of meaning of what you're trying to say without it being too explicit is that the right word for YouTube? Okay, right, okay, let's get into the first of 5 stories today. The first story is made up of 2 short stories. The guy's experience with tuk-tuk drivers, one good, one bad. So this will kick us off today.
สวัสดีค่ะ
I was in Sukhumvit, Bangkok, and having a night out, and after a long evening of drinks, I decided to head back to my hotel, so I fell into a tuk-tuk. The driver dropped me off straight to the hotel, where I entered my room and immediately crashed into a deep sleep. After a good night's sleep, time for breakfast. Getting dressed and looking for my wallet and phone, I cannot find where I left my phone. Getting nervous, not the first phone I've lost on a big night out, I used my Find My iPhone app from my laptop, which was in my hotel room. I managed to find that the phone was last located in the hotel. I went through the entire room and cannot find the phone. I empty every bag, check under the bed, pockets, but no luck. I ring the phone several times and cannot hear it. Within a short time, my hotel room phone rings and it was hotel reception. They had advised me that last night on my way back the tuk-tuk, I left my phone in his vehicle. The driver was kind enough to take the phone inside and give it to reception staff and said to them he didn't know who I was. However, I left a fairly new iPhone in his tuk-tuk. Often, for good reason, tuk-tuk drivers have a bad reputation. However, on this occasion, I was so pleasantly surprised that a driver was so decent and so honest that he would return my iPhone. Major cost and inconvenience averted. Yeah, and there is a lot of honest Thai people out there. In fact, I think most Thais are honest, but people have bad experiences like this next one. The night I was in Bangla Road, I was enjoying a game of AFL football in the Aussie bar on their large screens, having a few beers with a few friends and having a great afternoon. When the time comes to go home, I had had a few drinks and for sure I would have been over the legal limit, but I wasn't too drunk. My car was parked on the beach road of Patong. I started the car and attempted to reverse out, and this was extremely difficult as the beach road around 7 p.m. was so busy at this time of night. I slowly edged my car a little bit onto the busy road until I saw an opportunity to drive out further. I misjudged this opportunity marginally and my car clipped a tuk-tuk on his way past. As you know about tuk-tuk drivers with a reputation of being mafia-like, the tuk-tuk driver got out and aggressively met me outside with the 2 vehicles. Within minutes, I had many tuk-tuk drivers gathering around me in complete support of their fellow driver. Not that I was disputing, it was my fault. However, the temperature of the situation was unnecessarily escalating. I was trying to keep the situation calm as I know the consequences should I be aggressive back. Collectively, the drivers are getting very aggressive about how much I'm going to pay for the damage. I open my wallet and I offer all the money I had, about 5,000 baht, which is also was a very reasonable amount for a small damage. At that point, I felt genuinely concerned for my safety. Unfortunately, I wasn't in a position to involve the police given that I had already been drinking, and I suspect if I involve the police, I might put myself in more trouble than what it's worth. I contacted a Thai friend of mine and asked her to come down to assist me. She was not far and was able to get there within a short time and help me negotiate a settlement to the small damage of the tuk-tuk. I'm sure in reality the cost was small. However, a settlement of about 11,000 baht was made. The settlement probably ensured my safety more than anything, and no problem with the police, given that I had already been drinking. Yeah, I mean, it's not a good idea to drink and drive here in Thailand because they're getting stricter, and it is very strict. I've got an experience similar to what this guy had years ago. I'm talking about 25 years ago. I was driving back from Pattaya, and I had a friend with me in the passenger seat, and he had an apartment at the end of Soi Cowboy, not the Asok end, the 23 end. As you come out of Cowboy, look up, there's a block of apartments there. He lived there, and I dropped him off, and at that time they were building there was building going on next to his apartment, so there were a lot of workers on there. And as he got out, when you're in Thailand, if you open a car door, you have to look out for motorbikes. If you're in a taxi, you come here in a taxi, don't just swing the door open, because the likelihood is somebody will smack into the door on a motorbike. They're in and out, weaving in and out of cars. And the guy I was with, my friend, he didn't look. He opened the door and a motorbike went into the car, and the driver the motorbike rider hurt his right hand. The bike went down. There was a little bit of damage, but not much. And at that time, the guy on the motorbike, he wasn't aggressive at all, and he said he needed money for repairs, and he quoted about 3,000 baht. And my friend started kind of not arguing with him, but he was trying to get the price down. And while this was going on, a lot of the workers had come out of the building site, and they were around the car, and there must have been about 15 of them, 12, 15, and it was starting to heat up the situation, and you never want to be in a situation like that in Thailand. And he put his head in the door and he said to me, "What do you think, 3,000? I said, "Listen, just pay it and get out of here." And luckily he listened to me. He paid the 3,000. We know we're getting ripped off sometimes, but sometimes you're in a foreign country, you're dealing with foreign people, and sometimes you have to just get out the situation rather than end up in a hospital bed or something like that. And nobody likes it, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. Right, let's jump into story number 2. It was August 2022, winter in Australia after the COVID lockdowns and a really tough breakup. Even the sun-drenched days of Sydney could not chase away a growing sense of loneliness. I had tried dating in Australia using dating apps and even dating meetups, but it had not amounted to anything. Living alone now, the city's vibrant energy, once so exciting, now felt lonely and distant. I was a stranger in a beautiful place, uninspired by my work and deeply in need of a change. I was craving an escape, a new kind of adventure to fill the void, and as I was rapidly approaching 50, I started to realise that dating at my age was not quite like it was when I was younger. The carefree days of meeting someone new and feeling that instant connection seemed far behind me. No one was ever going to replace the one who had been the love of my life. But let's be honest, trying to find a new partner at my age felt like trying to find a needle in a haystack. But I was not ready to give up, even if I was not exactly sure what I was looking for anymore. That is when one evening in the pub, my good friend Mike mentioned Thailand. Mike had spent plenty of time there. We were having a few drinks, chatting about life, when he dropped a bombshell. "Why don't you sublet your place and go to Thailand for a few weeks? You can work remotely during the week and party the rest of the time." The idea was too good to ignore, and without hesitation, I was scouring flights and hotels online. I advertised my flat on Facebook, and I found a Norwegian tourist couple to sublet it to, and I packed my bags. I did not even tell my boss I was leaving. The plan was simple: work by day, party by night. Thailand was calling. I flew into Bangkok, where I spent a few days before heading to Koh Samui. I stayed in reasonable hotels where I could work from as I tried to find my bearings in this new world. I had heard so much about the full moon party, so I headed to Koh Phangan for that, eager to experience it. I had some brief encounters with bar girls in Bangkok and Koh Samui, and a lucky near miss with a ladyboy in Koh Phangan. Despite all the excitement, I still felt a little disconnected. I was working remotely, which meant I was alone more often than not, and the solitude I had hoped to escape seemed to follow me halfway across the world. I had fun, but it was fleeting. The excitement was there, but something was missing. I had not truly arrived in Thailand yet. I went back to Sydney, bitten by the Thailand bug. I knew I wanted to go back, but I did not want to go alone, and I did not want to spend my days working. Christmas was approaching, and I had some time off work. This time, things were going to be different. Mike and I planned the trip together, but flew out separately. I flew into Phuket hours before him. Feeling the thick, humid air of Thailand greet me as I stepped off the plane. It was so good to be back. By the time Mike's plane touched down, I had found a bar alive with neon lights, Thai pop music blaring from the speakers, and laughter ringing out from every corner. I was already 10 or more games deep in Connect 4 with the bar girls. I had been practicing on my phone with an app since my last trip, and I was winning, playing for tequila shots and working my way up the ladder to play mamasans and bar owners. That was where my winning streak ended. Embracing the chaos of the moment, ringing the bell, I was drunk and losing, but I did not care. When Mike walked in sober and a bit travel-weary, he froze for a moment. "Pat, what are you doing?" he asked, amusement mixed with concern. "You're giving your money away." But the atmosphere was contagious. Soon enough, he was laughing along with me, unable to resist the energy of the place. Looking for a break from the frenzy, Mike wanted to save me from blowing all my cash on the first night, so he dragged me down to Bangla Road. We passed through crowds of people, street food vendors and bars until we stumbled upon a quieter spot. It was a small bar with a couple of worn pool tables tucked at the back. Mike's face lit up. He was somewhat of a pool shark. He was in his element. That was where I met her, Pom. She was a bar girl, but there was something different about her. She had a naughty laugh and a knack for hustling the guys at pool, all while teasing and laughing at our expense. She was half my age, dressed in a revealing outfit and flirtatious. It was obviously part of the job, but I did not care. I was hooked. For the first time in months, I felt alive. Pom introduced her friend to Mike, and the night continued with more pool, laughter, and shots. Eventually, we took a wild tuk-tuk ride back to our hotel. This was not just, say, any tuk-tuk. It was bigger than the ones in Bangkok, more like a pickup truck with benches down each side of the back. It had a massive sound system that he could connect via Bluetooth, and the girls were dancing in the back. The whole vehicle was bouncing to the music. After a sleepless night at the hotel, the next day we did not get up until lunchtime. All tired and hungover, we treated the girls to a massive Thai meal at a beach restaurant. Pom had an appetite that could rival anyone's, devouring plate after plate of food. Mike and I exchanged glasses, wondering if we were being taken advantage of, but the food was so cheap we just laughed it off and ordered more. Pom earned the nickname Pac-Man for her bottomless hunger. After a few days of living the high life in Phuket and spending Christmas Day on the beach, we decided to head to Koh Phi Phi. The scenery was breathtaking, but the vibe just was not the same without the girls around. So we made our way back to Phuket for New Year's Eve, ready for more adventures. The fireworks on New Year's Eve were spectacular. Next, we decided to head to Koh Lanta, and with my birthday approaching, I asked Pom to come with us. The days leading up to my birthday were a relaxing lull. The trip was winding down. We made the long journey back to Phuket with a long stop at Koh Phi Phi, which we spent on the beach, giving us plenty of time to reflect. Mike had to fly back home, but not before one last hurrah. We spent the day on Paradise Beach, had our final meal together, then a big night out on Bangla Road. And of course, we ended the night back at Pom's bar for one last game of pool. I only had another night or two before I had to leave, but it was nice to spend some time alone with Pom. Saying goodbye to Pom was bittersweet. We started a final dinner together, a whole lobster, and thought we stayed in touch for a while. I sent a little money a few times, but I knew deep down she had probably already moved on to the next lonely tourist visiting Patong Beach. And when I stopped sending money, the calls stopped too. Looking back, that trip was more than just a holiday. It was a rebirth. It was a birthday like no other, filled with laughter, chaos, and profound sense of being alive again. Thailand did not just give me an adventure, it gave me back a piece of myself that I had lost. And I will never forget the bar girls, the wild tuk-tuk ride, or my fantastic birthday cake eaten by strangers. Would I do it all again? Maybe. But perhaps next time I would ring the bell a little less, and maybe, just maybe, I would get to eat my own birthday cake. I think I got some of the girls' names a little bit mixed up there. You know, I always try to change names and make the stories anonymous, and I think I got my Poms and Poos mixed up a little bit there. But he's right about one thing. If you've ever dated a Thai girl, they can just eat. I don't know where they put it. Maybe they've got hollow legs, who knows? But they, you know, they can out-eat any big guy. And but luckily, Thai food in a Thai restaurant is pretty cheap, so not too much damage done there. Okay, right, let's jump into story number 3. Now, this is a story I was talking about at the end that I had to heavily edit, so it's about half the length of it, but still interesting. Hello, my name is Dave. I'm from the UK and I live in London. I was married but had no children, having had a vasectomy because of my wife's health problems at the time, which I will not elaborate on here. We had been married for about 10 years and I thought everything was good, but I did not see the signs and she ran off with her professor. Maybe she was running from her own demons, I will never know. We never stayed in touch and I eventually put her out of my mind. At that time, I was working as a car restorer for a prestigious company that specialised in upmarket classic cars such as E-Type Jaguars. I loved my work and I was very good at it. It was during this period that I decided to take a holiday to Thailand with some friends. We wanted to experience Thailand and see what it had to offer. We planned to stay a couple of nights in Bangkok and then head down to Pattaya. My friends had never been to Thailand, but I had been years earlier as a backpacker. Bangkok had changed beyond recognition, and I was curious to see it again. We were all in a good financial position, so we decided to enjoy ourselves to the fullest and even flew out first class with British Airways. The food, service and seating were outstanding, a world away from economy. We landed at Bangkok's airport and were immediately thrown into the chaos of the terminal. It was busy, loud and confusing, but that is when we knew we had arrived in a truly unique destination. Luckily, we had arranged a car to meet us, and soon we were driving into the city, ready for the adventure. The first thing we noticed was the heat and humidity. My friends were pale from the English weather, but I had spent some time in Indonesia and my skin was already tanned. After unpacking, we decided to explore the local nightlife. Just near our hotel, we found a few bars and live music spilling out into the street. We headed in and were immediately hit by the sounds, smells and energy of Bangkok. We ordered drinks and settled in. To our left was a separate room, so we decided to investigate. Inside were poles and a steel cage, which added to the mystery. A band struck up with Hotel California, not the Eagles but a decent version, and the atmosphere was already lively. A few minutes later, some dancers appeared and started their routines. The atmosphere was electric, the crowd cheering them on, and we were hooked from the start. Drinks flowed, shots appeared, and before long, a group of women joined us at our table. My girl's name was Lan. She had a striking look about her and a personality that drew me in. We clicked straight away and things got very wild as the night went on. My friends were having just as much fun and it was clear we were in for an unforgettable evening. At one point, all eyes turned to the cage as an announcement was made. A show was about to begin. And while I cannot go into detail here, let's just say the crowd went crazy and the whole bar erupted. The energy was contagious and it was unlike anything I had seen before. After a while, I decided to leave with Lan and made our way back to the hotel. My friends had already disappeared with their companions, and I would catch up with them the following day. The next morning, I was standing on my balcony with a coffee, looking over the city, when Lan came and put her arms around me. We went out together for breakfast. Her English was limited, but we got by, and we enjoyed a couple of days in Bangkok together. I knew it was only temporary, but we made the most of it. After 2 days, it was time to head to Pattaya. We had arranged a chauffeur-driven car, and when we arrived, we were blown away. Pattaya was completely different to Bangkok, and the energy of the place was incredible. We checked into the LK Empress on Beach Road, a grand hotel at a modest price with a pool and rooms overlooking the ocean. That evening, we headed out and found ourselves in bars full of music, laughter, and people from all over the world. It was like being in a sweet shop with too many choices. Before long, we had all paired off again, but we stayed at the same table, so the banter continued. A young woman named Song joined me. She was lively, funny, and knew how to keep the night moving. We played pool together, and although I usually consider myself a good player back home, she completely outplayed me. I laughed it off, and we continued drinking together, knowing full well where the evening was heading. She was excellent company and told me about her family in the north of Thailand. I told her a story about myself too, but kept it light, nothing too serious. By the end of the night, we left together, and let's just say the atmosphere back at the hotel was just as electric as it had been in the bars. The next morning, I stood with my coffee watching Pattaya come alive. The ocean was beautiful, but not as beautiful as the women who come and stood next to me. I knew then that keeping to the so-called 3-day rule might be harder than I had imagined. Over the next few days, I got to know her more. She was from Chiang Mai and had a daughter. We spent time together, sometimes with my friends, sometimes just the two of us, enjoying meals, exploring the city, and simply living for the moment. There were times when little warning bells went off in my head, but I pushed them aside. The holiday was turning into more than I expected. Looking back now, I know I let myself get carried away, but at that time I was swept along by the whole experience. Thailand has a way of doing that to you. You arrive thinking you are in control, but the country, the people, and the atmosphere draw you in deeper and deeper. It is a place that can give you some of the best nights of your life, but it can also teach you some very tough lessons. For me, that trip was a mix of both. I had laughter, excitement, and moments of pure joy, but also situations that made me question what I was doing and who I was with. By the time I flew home, I knew I would never forget it. Thailand had shown me its wild side, its charm, its chaos, all rolled into one. Would I do it again? Maybe, but I would be a lot more cautious. One thing is for sure, that trip reminded me I was still alive, and that sometimes stepping into the unknown is what you need to feel human again. That's strange, isn't it? The last story had that exact same line, would I do it again? But it is a completely different story. You know, occasionally guys will say to me, the stories you read out, Peter, some weeks are a bit boring. I've been watching some other channels, and there's another channel who every week they have a crash and burn story, and, they're always exciting. And my attitude to that is, look, I can only read what I get sent in. And these are genuine stories that guys write in. They send me emails and I read them as they come in. Now, of course, genuine stories are not all going to be exciting. You're going to have some good, some bad, some a little bit boring, some very interesting, some that will bring you close to tears. If you're watching a channel that has nothing but crash and burn stories, you've got to ask yourself, are those stories real? I don't know, it's up to you guys to make your own minds up, but they certainly are here, I can guarantee you that. Right, okay, into story number 4 of 5 a day. This is going to be a long upload if I don't get on with it, right? I am a man in my early 60s from America, and I have travelled to Thailand many times since 2019, usually 4 times a year. And over time, I've connected the dots on how everything works there with fun, travel, trains, planes, tuk-tuks, and the nightlife. My story is about how looking for love outside of dating apps can sometimes go very wrong. One afternoon, back home, I was browsing profiles on a dating app where I had been an off and on subscriber. I usually avoid obvious red flags like photos taken in bars, on beds, or with tongues sticking out, because to me, those are clear signs of solicitations. Then I came across a profile called Maya. She was 39, but she looked closer to 25. She had a unique look that I found appealing, and her photos suggested she worked in the medical field. She responded to my message, and over the next week, we chatted casually. She told me she was a nurse's aide at Bumrungrad Hospital in Bangkok. Soon enough, she was calling me handsome, asking when I was coming to Thailand, and flirting in the kind of playful way I had seen before. After 3 weeks, the conversations slowed down, but we still exchanged emojis and short messages. One day, I searched her screen name on Facebook and found her public account. The photos matched everything she had sent me: family, pets, food, even her daughter, who she described as chubby. Later, I found her Instagram, and that was the real surprise. It went all the way back to 2016, and among the everyday posts were pictures of her with an older Western man, clearly her partner. He was much taller and heavier than her, and they looked like an unlikely couple. Scrolling further, I found their wedding photos from only 2 months earlier. Wedding rings, family shots, the works. It became clear they had been together for at least 18 months. There were also pictures of trips, dinners and outings that he had clearly paid for. I never confronted her about it, but I kept playing along to see where it went. I booked another trip to Thailand and told her. She seemed happy about it until the date got close, and then she stopped responding. I landed in Bangkok and sent her messages but got no reply. I wrote her off as having cold feet. That evening I went to buy some things near Terminal 21. On the way back, who do I see walking towards me but Maya and her husband? She was still in hospital scrubs. He was in the classic foreigner outfit of sandals, shorts and a t-shirt. She spotted me straight away, and I gave her a look that said I knew the truth. They kept walking and I kept my distance. They went into Robinson's department store and I followed, but I lost sight of them. On my way out, I found him standing near the exit alone. I decided to speak to him. I asked if he knew a woman named Maya. He said yes, she was his wife. I introduced myself and told him briefly what had happened, leaving out the Facebook and Instagram part and only mentioning the dating app. He was shocked, but believed me once I told him things about her life that only someone who knew her would know. I connected with him online so we could talk later. That night, he texted me saying he had confronted her. She denied everything, refused to show her phone, and he made her pack her things and leave. He was devastated, but he thanked me. Over the next day, he told me more about how they met. He was from California, retired from the oil industry, and had moved to Koh Samui, where he met her on holiday. He sold his condo there, moved to Bangkok, bought another place near her work, and even paid off her car and her parents' debts. He told me, I thought she was different. The next morning, he told me he felt broken and betrayed, but I reassured him that he was now free. I told him not to rush into anything new and to take time to heal. For the next few days, we exchanged messages. He was upset, sometimes angry, sometimes resigned, but always circling back to the same disbelief. I reminded him that she was not his problem anymore and that he should see it as freedom. Weeks later, I looked at her Instagram again. All of the wedding photos and any sign of him had been removed. Months later, she reappeared in new photos with another Western man. It confirmed what I already knew. As I told him that night, you never know who is going to walk into your life and turn it around, but sometimes you also never know who is going to fool you along the way. I've never understood these girls who do this, but I can understand them going on social media sites and sites like Tinder and Badoo looking for foreigners, especially older Thai women, because they find it harder to date Thai guys the older they get. They might have a kid. Thai guys are generally not interested in dating a girl who's already had a child. So I can understand that aspect of it. But once they find a guy like this, obviously this guy, her husband, wasn't playing with her. He married her. He paid off the parents' debts. He paid off her car debt. He was serious. They were a serious couple. Why is she going after other foreigners? That's never understood me. And something I'd like to ask you guys, if you were in his situation and you found out, would you have told her husband? For myself, I think I would have, yeah, because he was being, he's probably a decent guy and she was being deceitful. And I think I would have told her, but some guys will probably come back and say, no, I wouldn't have got involved. Just let them get on with it and he won't know any different. What would you have done, honestly? Right, okay, into our fifth and final story of the day. Hello, Peter. I have been a big fan of your channel since 2022. I want to tell you about my first trip to Thailand, which happened at the end of July 2025. I had already been to Vietnam in 2023, and it was a very pleasant experience, full of memories, but this trip to Thailand was much more meaningful. I travelled from Australia with a friend who also lives in my city, and for him, it was his third visit to the land of smiles. We arrived in Bangkok on a Friday night, and the first thing I did was rest after the long flight, take a shower, and although I had not planned to go out, the noise in the street tempted me. I went to 7-Eleven to buy a traveller SIM card, and that was where the whole adventure began. I prepared to go out with a little money, taking all possible precautions to avoid an expensive mistake and an early visit to the embassy. So I left my passport, important documents and credit cards in the hotel safe. I was very excited to see what would happen to me, as I had already heard many stories on your channel and on others, and I did not know which version of Thailand I would get. I wondered to myself if I would be a victim of fraud, if I would fall in love with a ladyboy, or if I would meet a bargo who would take all my money and leave me heartbroken. All my friends asked me after the trip how many ladyboys I'd been with. Honestly, I was tempted, but I did not do it, although now I understand why many people go exclusively for that. I walked until I found a freelancer I liked. She gave me a price, but I did not want to take her to my room so quickly on my first night, so we just went for drinks in a bar across the street. We kissed a little and then I let her go. After that, I found a tuk-tuk driver and asked him if there were any bars nearby where I could finish my night. It was already 2 in the morning. He took me to a bar where the women were available to sit with you, have a drink, and if things went well, there was the option of going somewhere more private. But honestly, I was not interested in doing that. Instead, I told the driver he could choose a girl he liked and I would buy drinks for both of them. Just when I thought he would not choose anyone, I saw a woman in the corner who I liked immediately. I stood up and I went to her. We had several drinks and I liked her a lot. We ended up kissing and taking selfies. The place was quiet, the women were beautiful but looked bored, so I bought drinks for the ones that I thought were the prettiest. At 7 in the morning, the first woman I had chosen told me she would go with me to my hotel, which I accepted, but they denied her entry because she had no identification. We ended up at her apartment instead, buying some breakfast on the way. After getting to know each other a little better, using the translator and a bit of English, we had aerobics and finally I was able to sleep. Walking back to my hotel the next night was a very bad idea because my phone died and I had no idea where I was. After walking in circles through the same streets, I gave up and took a taxi who vaguely understood my directions to the hotel. The next day, very excited, I went to another bar full of freelancers. What I liked about this one was that there was live music. I met a German guy who told me, I have 2 women, take whichever one you like. They would treat you well and not charge you much. But one of them got very drunk, so I stopped dancing with her. On my way to the bathroom, I saw another freelancer sitting alone, not drinking. She looked at me. I smiled, went up to her and asked what she was doing there. She said she was just enjoying the night. I asked if she was working and she said yes. I asked how much and she replied, up to you. Later, she confessed she said that because she liked me. Her friend joined us and I suggested, why don't we all go to my room and see what happens? At the end of the night, I paid them for their time. We had aerobics in my room and I suggested going to the beach the next day. They organised everything for us to go to Hua Hin. There, I ate very good food. We went to a temple. We bought some beers. I knew I would have aerobics that night and I did not feel physically ready for the challenge, so secretly I took a little bit of help, which comes in the form of a little blue tablet, which I did not need since I'm in good health and I'm only 40 years old, but I felt insecure. The combination of beer and no rest had wrecked me. In less than 5 minutes I had palpitations, sweating and a panic attack. I thought I was going to die. The women were scared and worried for me. They took me back to my room, gave me tea and water and let me rest. Interestingly, they did not steal my wallet. As the effects slowly passed, I was left feeling charged up. To simplify things, I had aerobics with one, but still had not finished, so when she went to the bathroom, I woke the other one up and did aerobics with her too. She was surprised that 2 hours earlier I had panicking and now I was having one of my best nights in years. I always use protection to avoid unpleasant consequences. I really do not recommend mixing substances. They told me many tourists die this way, mixing things they do not in their own home countries, leading to heart attacks or worse. The next morning we went to a mountain temple and also a safari. Some debate the ethics of watching elephants, tigers and crocodiles perform tricks, but for me it was memorable. People stared at me, surprised to see me with two women. I felt like the most handsome man in the world, but I knew it was only business. We returned to Bangkok after 2 days and I told one of them it was over, but I stayed with the other one for another day. Maybe that was a mistake because the first woman texted me asking to see me. I agreed, so I sent the second home and went back to the first one's apartment. We had dinner, some excellent whiskey and continued at my hotel. Even though I had warned the woman from the beach not to come because I would be busy and wanted to avoid awkward situations, she still showed up at 7 in the morning, demanding I send the other away. I refused and she left angry, making a rude gesture as she left. She keeps texting me that morning asking if the other had gone, and I finally told her I did not want to see her again because she made things too complicated and I could not trust her. The next time I saw her was at the airport, which was funny, but I enjoyed myself more with the first woman. She took me to the Grand Temple, we ate local food, I learnt a few words from her and we had plenty of aerobics. She told me she was working to pay off her sister's gambling debts, which left two children with their grandmother. She said she used to work as a jeans model and also tried to be a stylist, but it did not pay well, so only 6 months ago she started working in that bar. That night before, she had been in hospital after being attacked by another girl accusing her of stealing clients, and she also suffered from a manager who mistreated her if she wanted to go home early when there were no customers. After spending more money than I had planned, I decided not to see either of them again and just enjoy Bangkok. I went to Nana Plaza, Terminal 21, Soy Cowboy, shopping malls, my country's embassy and Lumpini Park. Those were the best days when I finally explored the city without getting lost and used public transport with ease. I rested from the intense heat, which is much stronger in Bangkok than in my city in Australia. The story ends with the first woman inviting me to her apartment for my last 2 days so I would not have to pay for a hotel. She only asked for some help with transport, food and small things from 7-Eleven. We went to a night market where I was amazed at all the cheap and delicious things to buy, even exotic foods like fried insects and crocodile meat. At the end, I gave her the equivalent of a night in a hotel. There are many more details I could tell, but I do not want this to be even longer. I really want to return to Thailand, maybe next year. I could not go to Phuket or Pattaya because there was a cyclone and it felt unsafe, and also because my friend had up to 4 women a day visiting him in his hotel. It was risky, but he did not care. He was shameless, something I do not condone, but each person lives their own life. Next time I want an even more memorable adventure, although this one was already extreme. It had been a long time since I had felt anything for anyone or been excited about life. In Thailand I found peace, chaos, fulfillment, beautiful women and a confidence I had not felt in years. Returning to reality was devastating and it took me weeks to adjust back to my routine. Life felt boring again, and while Australian women are very attractive, they are not as fun and escorts here are extremely expensive. Thanks for reading out my story. So a lot of guys feel like that, don't they? When they come to Thailand, they feel a lot happier than when they're in their own country. And I once, about 3 years ago, Apple, the female taxi driver, was taking me to the airport, and I made a video in the taxi with Apple called The Worst Thing About Thailand, a little bit of a clickbait thumbnail there. And I basically said the worst thing about coming to Thailand is when you're going down the highway and you're in a car, in the taxi rather, and you know those lumps in the road to tell you to slow down. When you're going over them, you know you're near the airport. It kind of gets depressing, doesn't it? The other thing I wanted to talk about real quickly, when the freelancer said to him, "Up to you, how much do you want?" and she said, "Up to you." And in this story, he's saying that's because she really liked him. It's more likely because a lot of guys who come here, they don't really know the rates. And if a girl says up to you and her cost is 1,500 baht, maybe he'll give her 2,000 thinking it's fair, so she's made more. And the classic line, I only started in the bar 6 months ago. I used to be a hairstylist. It's always good fun to hear these lines come out, isn't it? All right, guys, a bit of a longer upload this week. Thanks for listening to me. I won't say any more. I'll let you get on with your day. Only thanks for listening once again, and I'll be back with some more news stories next Saturday.